Hello again, and welcome back to my Bonanza Valley and Western Model Railroad. Let me ask you a question. What type of model railroader are you? We typically define ourselves as prototype modelers or freelance modelers. We model the modern era or the transition period, steam, diesel. You get the picture. But how do you define yourself when it comes to focus? I marvel at model railroaders who've dedicated their whole lives and modeling efforts to a single theme. It's easy to applaud their singular vision and undistracted approach. And considering the expense of model railroading, it's probably a good thing to stay focused. But if you're like me, your hobby interests and model railroad interests are diverse. I've mentioned my earliest influence being Malcolm Furlow. Even though my own modeling pursuits have grown since that early influence, it's easy to get the itch to do something completely different than my Bonanza Valley and Western. In fact, I have in the past set aside my primary modeling goals and focused on other types of model railroads, and not just once. I'd like to share with you some photos of past projects that brought me to where I am today, and why I feel that these are not a distraction, but beneficial creative outlets to give myself a break and enhance my skills. If your primary model railroad concept is sound and enjoyable, a break from it will lead you back recharged and committed to moving your model railroad forward.
I've had the pleasure of modeling in multiple scales. When I lived in Reno for 12 years, I was 15 short minutes from Reno Rails, a hobby shop that specialized in MTH 3-rail. My earliest train memory as a kid was setting up my brother's Lionel train set in the 1970s, and even though by the time I moved to Reno and was a committed HO scaler modeling the prototype Soo line, my imagination flared. After a move to Texas, I invested in some O-gauge 3-rail to scratch that itch. The culmination of that interest was a 3-rail model railroad based on the Union Pacific in the Southwest. A really fun, but ultimately short-lived adventure. My townhouse was not entirely suited for O-gauge, so I sold all of it and rededicated myself to HO scale. My next pursuit was based entirely on a book I'd acquired about the Lehigh in New England. The desire to model a coal road during the steam to diesel transition period was too great. I erected a small layout in my Texas townhouse and went to work. The bug didn't last long. The pandemic hit, and thoughts of my hometown and my love of the Soo line took over, and I spent the rest of the pandemic modeling a proto-freelance layout I called the Soo Line South End Industrial District. Over time, I added some Chicago Northwestern equipment and redesigned my little layout to loosely represent the yard in Escanaba, Michigan. It was at this time that I first hatched the idea of the Bonanza Valley and Western. I lacked the space, but the freelance concepts were starting to develop. A move back to Minnesota in the spring of 2021 meant I had no space for a model railroad. For a year and a half, I built Soo cabooses and freight cars. With the summer sun shining, I got caught up in an outdoor model railway adventure that brought me to the world of 7/8 modeling. Working with a 3D printer on Etsy, I developed a steam tram local that was battery powered. I thoroughly enjoyed this unique large scale and would like to someday build an outdoor layout, though I have to admit, it's really hard on the old back. In October of 2022, I finalized the purchase of the home I grew up in and moved back to the family farm. So you'd think that I'd be ready to dig into the Bonanza Valley and Western, right? Nope. My sister-in-law is Japanese, and a discussion with her and my brother about the train scene in Japan got me thinking about Japanese model railroading. If you really want a rabbit hole, jump down that one. The end result creatively was my first foray into Kato N-Scale and their great selection of Japanese model trains. I built a 6-foot by 5-foot model railroad in the winter of 22 and 23 of a fictional tourist town I called Matsumoto. It featured a Malcolm Furlow-style bridge over a waterfall, a cherry blossom forest, and a small temple that included a koi pond. Building Matsumoto was an incredibly fun pursuit over the long Minnesota winter, and it challenged my modeling skills in many ways. As I ultimately needed the spare bedroom that housed Matsumoto, I dismantled the layout this past summer, saving the temple scene and vowing to someday come back to this great theme.
Which brings me back to the present. I'm very much committed to the Bonanza Valley and Western. I love the modern era, and it's challenging my skills in new ways. Will I get tired of it and need a break? Absolutely, and that's okay. If you're of a similar state of mind and find yourself not wanting to work on your current railroad, take a break from it. Do something different and share your results. Be proud of your diverse model railroad pursuits. As my dad always said, you can't change the stripes on a zebra. Until next time, happy model railroading, however you pursue it.